This hangout is live. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to What is the Positive? This is our weekly show about the science of positivity and positive thinking. And today we're going to reach deep into those concepts to really work out the definitions of a couple things. And specifically, we're going to attack the concepts of love and fear. And to do this with me, I've got three constituents. First, I should probably introduce myself. My name is Roland. That's enough. Okay, now next on the list, we have Carlo Savio. Why don't you say hi, Carlo?
Hi, Carlos Savio in Las Vegas. I'm no longer young enough to think I know everything, and I'm happily living an examined life out here in Vegas.
Great. Thank you. And also with us is Shira Hunt. Shira, would you say hi and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Shira. I'm a vibrational medicine teacher and therapist, and I'm trying to figure out what age that actually happens, Carlo, because I'm there too. So it's all good. At least the world kind of wide open to us. We're constantly learning. But happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Roland.
Sure. Thank you for being here. And what exactly is this happenstance in life that we're talking about? We'll cover that on another show. First of all, before we go any further, the concept that was born on today was generated from a brief conversation that I had with George Stewart, who is our last but not least third co-host on the show. And so, George, say hi, and we're going to continue right off from after we introduce you and get into the subject matter at hand today.
Hi,
So say
everybody.
hi.
Hi, everyone. This is George. Central Tennessee, down near Nashville, as you can tell by the accent, and just having fun with life. Let's see how it all unfolds today.
Yeah, you're always talking about your accent, but I'm not sure that I sense the same thing that. I mean, are you talking about a Tennessean accent, or are you talking about some other accent?
A Tennessean.
Really? So that's
Hmm.
a Tennessean accent.
No, oh, absolutely not.
I was wondering. So you want to clarify where you say your accent actually comes from?
It's from the UK, from England, right in the centre.
Okay. Okay,
Not the
now
deep
I got it.
south of England.
Okay, I'm okay now. I'm okay. I'm okay now. Okay. I got it. I've been wondering for a while, but whenever you say Tennessee, it's like my brain goes tweak, you know. So at least we understand now that, of course, you've got an English-based accent.
Yes.
What's interesting is my other counterpart in business, JV partner, WeWake, is Indian by nationality and cultural background, but he's living in Britain today, and he's been there for a long time, but he doesn't sound anything British at all, of course. And so my concept of British is multifaceted, and of course the Indian English and the Indian influence in Britain is extreme. They're I mean, I think that their national dish is tandoori chicken, if I'm right.
No,
In
not
in the
quite.
UK, in the UK, it's known as Hotel Motel Potel.
Okay, another deviation from the actual the trend of what this show is all about. But obviously, we have a lot of fun on the show. I'm thanking everyone who comes and listens and participates for allowing us that type of casualness. The show is based on positivity, and I think the funny thing about positivity is that it's definitely subject for interpretation. And the thing that happens a lot of time is when you say positivity, people will go immediately to the concept of judgment of what is positive. And then it's no longer necessarily a positive thing. It's a concept that one individual thinks would be a positive influence if someone else would agree. And that's not being positive. That's not being a lot of things. But it's definitely something when we put our beliefs and our opinions and our judgments upon other people and add that to our expectations, it somewhat ceases to be positive. So we want to talk about a couple words that are all in alignment with positivity and negativity, and that is love and fear. We started a list the other day, and I'll be showing this as we go on, of what love is and what the lack of love is, because it's hard for me to describe exactly what the opposite of love is. And I came to the conclusion that the best way to describe it for me would be to call it love lack. If you are totally lacking in love, just about everything that's negative has an association with that concept. So, and it's kind of funny, I was able to get rid of the sun on my face, but I'm striped. And I really don't know where these stripes are coming from when I'm looking at my lighting here. So please be distracted if you will, and whatever. But I'll cease to be striped in a little bit. We're going to go back over to George here, and we're going to cover something that I included in my event details. And George, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll let you re-quote your quote, and then also go ahead and go into a bit of a dissertation on what exactly you mean by what you presented. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the quote, and this is something that I put in that blog online, was the first bit was in brackets, our perception of. Everything is either love or fear. We get to choose in every moment, and that equals what we are being in every moment, love or fear, and thus we create our life moment by moment. You've probably gathered, if you've watched this show at all, that I tend towards the simplistic as much as possible. I work on the KISS principle. And this one for me is it's the total energy picture. I need to preface all this with a saying that I use a lot: your mileage may vary. So I'm not here to convince anyone. It's not my desire to change anyone's mind. This is purely my point of view. If it resonates with you, hey, that's cool. And if not, hey, we all have many different roads to the top of the mountain. So my total energy picture is that love is a universal entity. So when we're looking at love or fear, to me, it's not so much an emotion. And the love or fear to me is a choice of which direction we're facing. Which way are we looking? Are we looking towards love, or whichever direction you want to call it? To me, that's the critical part, because from that decision, that choice, then everything's going to unwind. And that's the frequency you're going to radiate into the world. I see it as a macrocosm, microcosm. You can see it as the perceived external world, what you radiate out, but it's also an internal choice as well. Which way am I facing, towards love or towards fear? So that's my worldview. I think that what underpins it for me as regards love is that it's based in faith, because we again go back to everything's divine or nothing is. I happen to believe everything is divine, and therefore everything is underpinned by that positive frequency, high frequency that we know as love. But it's a beingness, in my view. If you're facing in the direction of fear, that to me means you're filled with doubt, and that's a quick way, from experience, to slide into chaos, personal chaos. You're constantly looking for answers, there's never any certainty within you. And my question to everyone would be, if you're looking at that question of love or fear, which do I choose? Which way am I facing? Which changes things? Which changes things in the way that you choose in any particular moment? Love or fear? That's it.
So let's. I'm going to write this down because I do not want to forget it. Which changes? I write slowly. Changes. I also write poorly. Which changes things? Okay, so we'll get to that question. We're going to answer or come up with some suggestions for answers in a little bit. But I want to make a couple of points. By the way, were you finished with your segment?
Absolutely, yes. I've spoken
Okay.
my speak.
By the way, we're saying hi to Gary Whalen out there. And Loa Ann Fulsang was not able to make it today, but it sounds like Dan Weeks might be here joining us, and we always welcome him. So always welcome all of you. Thank you very much for showing up and being with us if you can. I'm not real clear on where we get 6 viewers. Apparently 6 people are watching. So say hi if you would like. Check in and let us know where you're from. And feel free to comment in the comment stream, add or comment whatever regarding the subjects today. And the couple of points that I wanted to make when you were saying is you were describing love as love is a universal energy. So I want to hang on to that thought for one thing. And then also you linked the concept to faith. And faith is somewhat controversial because people have a lot of trouble with faith. As in other words, when you're dealing with a bunch of life situations, faith becomes a more and more challenging concept. I mean, the more challenging your life, the more faith you're supposed to have, right? Or people drive down the faith. Come on, hang in there. You've got to have faith. And it comes down to the thing. It's like most critical when your problems are the worst. So given those things, that's a little bit of my perspective to those two things and the concept of love versus fear. Do Shira or Carlo, do you have anything to express about that? Absolutely. Go ahead. Okay, so that chapter is over for the moment.
I actually have something, but I thought Carlo was going, so I was waiting patiently.
Okay.
Not so patiently. Anyway, so actually, I think, in reference to what you and George both said, that I resonate with a lot of that too, and that the aspect of love and fear oftentimes comes through us based on our filters and our histories, that we are an expression of the things that we have learned and we believe in internally in us. So sometimes even when we have a desire to be in the loving aspect, fear will show itself because of our histories. But I believe that depending on the person, the same situation can look like either. And so if you are have this prospect inside that the world is a dangerous place, it's a dog-eat-dog world, you've always got to look after yourself. A simple thing that happens could cause you to feel fearful when another person looking at it could see an opportunity of possibly even being of assistance to something, that in a loving way. So the love and fear thing, I think, is really super subjective, and that even individually we can change around it moment to moment.
Absolutely, I agree with what you're saying. Carlo, did you have anything to add at this time?
Yeah, I'll take a shot. While all mammalians look for love, and the expression is, there's not a heart upon feeling love would open instantly. The alternative is that we are conditioned to cleave a little bit quicker to fear because we understand fear. We understand fear innately, and we understand and use fear as a vehicle to feel safe in a new situation.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to basically tag all of you with the concept right now. The concept is that love and fear have many connotations, and because they're just not something to be defined. And as George said, it's a state of being. Love is a state of being, and in a way, you could say the very same thing of fear. Fear is a state of being, but they're also connected with motion and timeline and expression. And I think the key word is expression, because it's not just a state of being. When you're being in love is a vibration of your being, and you're going to automatically attract things according to the methodology and the things that we talk about in the show all the time. As far as we attract, like attracts like, and there's a lot of ways that works, and there's a lot of ways that it doesn't work, but it appears not to work. And people mistake the concept of magnets and magnetization to the concept of attracting in your life, and they're two different things. So there are a lot of ways to misrepresent these terms today, but we will get to the point of trying to get down to the definitions. But right now, we're comparing the concept of love and fear, and I express that the key word is indeed expression, because we don't really necessarily feel love until we relate it to another person and wonder what their attitude is and what they think and what they do as a response and what they express to the other person or express to the world. And then people are up for evaluation and analysis, comparison, and those things. And that's where we get a lot of the definition of love and fear we associate with what people do. So the other equation that I would like to draw is there is a distinct connection between the two, and love and fear being directly the equal signs are somehow imminently connected to these two, of positivity and negativity. I don't think there's probably much of a debate about this. Anybody have any comments about what I'm rambling on with?
Yeah, I'll pop in there because we patently see this fairly differently. I see the word that we use as love, or what I understand as love, to be a universal energy that is not tied to human emotion. It's a state of beingness. I tend to look at things in a very simplistic way. I find that fear is infinite, and once we step on that path of fear, it's kind of like the opening the funnel, because it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why I say it depends which way you're facing. Are you choosing to face in the direction of love or direction of fear? When you go into fear, you want infinity to take you over, in effect. It's a choice.
Yes, I think that the getting back
I,
to, go ahead, Carlo.
I wanted to jump on something, not to minimize what you said, George, but in order to, in order to, you have to know which way you're facing before you can rationalize, is it love or is it fear? Because when we go through our day and we have all these attack thoughts, self-imposed, we leave little room. And once we realize, and you say, why am I having these attack thoughts? What am I fearful about? Then you begin to know where you're facing. So I call into question. I don't mean to minimize it, but I call into question the process.
I'd like to address that, if I may.
Yes,
Sorry,
please do.
Carl, I thought you'd done. It's quite quick. I think that what happens a lot of the time, especially in this world we inhabit, is that we try and address everything through the intellect. And this is not an intellectual question. We've got to get out of our mind and into our heart to know what love is.
So obviously
Okay,
this is
but hold on a second, please. Not so quick. Are you suggesting that this muscle called the heart has a capacity to reason?
Absolutely.
Or is it connected to a thing called the brain?
Everything is interconnected, correct? I'm not denying that. But we know that everything is frequency related, electromagnetic. They've already proved that the electromagnetic fields from the heart are far, far stronger than that from the brain, which we think rules everything. I don't think that's true.
But you're missing my point. Or you're circumventing my point, and that is to say, the impulses, sure, I'll support that, but is the heart able to record histories or just a sensation?
I think the heart has a brain also. Actually, every cell has a brain, and the heart is made up of many, many, many cells. And I think that although our concept of the brain is this thing, that every cell of our body has the ability to store information, to to receive and to digest the information. And many times we'll get a body response that really has nothing to do with our brain, so to speak. The body speaks before, and then the brain responds. That's my understanding of
Okay.
the mind-body.
So
The body.
where in the equation will we put universal consciousness?
The universal consciousness is not in any of those things. It is everything. And we are a part of all that.
So conversely, if you said that every cell in our body has a brain, could we also say that every cell in our body is connected to universal consciousness?
Of course it is. Absolutely.
So there are a lot of different interacting parts, and this is where we can definitely become misguided in our thinking and misled by what people say. And so part of a good example of this is this. We wake. I thank you very much for showing up, by the way, and also Barbara Quick is there, and Scorpio's out there. Thank you very much for showing up. But anyway, We Wake is here, and he says, regarding something that I said there, I disagree with you there, Roland. Fear is a feeling and is not a state of being. And I know that that's true, and yet I think that it goes beyond this. I always try to think beyond. We have terminology, we have ways we relate to things, but I think it's always bigger. It's always one step beyond what we're thinking. And so what we're thinking is how we relate to it, how we practically apply things, and how we can relate to it so that we can understand it and converse about it. So while fear is a feeling, it is also, to me, it is a state of being. You are existing in a continuous state of fear, which is describable, identifiable, and so forth. So although it's different from what you're describing as far as it being a feeling versus a state of being, if you wanted to use the definitions of state of being and the feeling as being different sensory connotations, yes. But I would agree with the thing that was brought out by Shira, and that is it is all interconnected. You cannot divide it. All is one, and one is all. And so that's where I'm coming from. And indeed, feeling is one of the counter or the subsets of the concept of the universal existence. Carlo, you had something to add, please?
Yeah, I would put forth an image. Thank you. Imagine all of us have seen ants in our life.
There was
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I was wondering what was happening. Okay. I want to put forth an image. All of us have an experience in our life, maybe, an ant in the kitchen. So now, you walk into the kitchen. The ant is happily feeding on little migajas or crumbs on the kitchen counter that you've left behind. You tap your thumb in the proximity of the ant. The ant goes away. Is that a feeling, or is that a brain, or is that a survival mechanism? I put that out there.
I don't think it's any one thing. When you talk about an action based on thought and intention, there are many interactive things. Go ahead, Shira.
I just said all of the above.
Okay, good enough.
That's what it was.
So the concept of indivisibility and the human experience, we have to consider that everything is probably more than we think. We look at the body and call it a 3D object that's animated because I think that I've got a brain and I think I've got sensory receptors and I can feel and I can also sense all these emotions and things that I have going on that I feel. But is it happening in your brain or is it happening in your fingertip? Is it happening in your body? Is it heart? Is it mind? What is it? It's all interacted. So I think that the point is fairly moot as far as where it comes from. I think the most important thing that we could deal with is what does it cause us to think, do, and express? I mean, that is the real issue here. What is all of this? The concept of relative love or relative fear, what does it cause us to do as a result?
So I'd like to speak to your polarity in that, Roland, in that your concept of the positives and the negatives, and we're looking at love and fear. Like, I had an opportunity early this morning where something occurred. It came like through a text on my phone, and I had an opportunity to get resistant, and say, how dare you, and what do you think you're doing, or what exactly, or will you explain to me, what do you think you're doing? And in the moment, instead of just grabbing the phone and responding with the text, I sat with that. And what ended up happening was that something totally different came up for me when I slowed down enough to ask myself what was happening inside. And in that moment, something shifted, and I went, yeah, okay, so I can hear this. And now what I want to do is, when I do come to this, I want to come to it from a place of love. So I chose the positive. Many times we're in such fast gear, we're on such a fast track in our culture especially, but on the planet as a whole, that we don't even stop to think. We just react, and then the reaction kind of bites us afterwards. But so in that moment, I came to understand that there's always the possibility that the mind, which, as Carlo pointed out earlier, we're kind of hardwired to look for the negative thing because that's safety and that's our survival. But if we catch the mind in its tracks and we ask a question of the mind, then we're focusing more in the heart. The question's coming up from our wisdom rather than from our intellect. And then we get to make a decision around that, which will take us into that higher polarity of joy, happiness, love. And so it changed the way my whole day unfolded, because in that moment I chose the polarity of happiness, or the polarity of compassion around what I was reading, rather than how dare you.
And by the way, Shira, my son Ty is in the audience listening to it, the broadcast live at work. So we won't tell anybody, Ty, that you're listening at work. But he says, amazing answer. By the way, I'm listening at work and found, et cetera, about it. Found an app, to watch YouTube from his phone, I guess. But anyway, he says yes, an amazing answer to a couple of your comments about 2 times back. So I wanted to bring that up. And in other words, yes, there's a lot of things going on in the audience here. And that tenet that keeps coming up, either everything is divine or nothing is. I think you can go ahead and drop the second part. It's pretty clear that no one here besides me apparently even bothers with the other possibilities, so drop it. Yeah, thank you, Dan. I completely want to acknowledge that, because you are not the only one that believes so strongly in the tenet that you adhere to. I mean, there are a lot of other people that claim to be on, say, our line of thinking, but indeed have some of the same doubts and questions in their mind that you do and I do, and so forth. So even though, yes, we will for the most part drop it, it's always a consideration, because nobody knows exactly what's going on here, and we are all speculating on what's going on. So this is a very interesting discussion, but I think we want to focus on what it is that we take away from this conversation, and what fear and what love are and how they interact. It's been said that love is kind of like a universal state of being. I would go along with what I'm saying from the first start, that everything here is multifaceted. So it's not just that love is a state of being. Love is a flow of energy. Love is an expression. Love is everything from a simple movement of one person touching another person, to the talking and encouraging them to face their challenges and survive, or addressing, adding a little bit of sympathy towards something going on. These are all expressions of love. Telling people a joke, expressing laughter, fun, enjoyment, those things are expressions. They're all connected to the expression of love. And so even though they might be a select part of what love is, it's not the universal thing. These things are connected intimately with the concept of love. And so if I were to describe love, I would say it's an interconnective um, medium that holds the entire universe together and is there in everything that we do and everything that we consider and everything that we experience. It's connected with love. And when for instance, okay, we're going to get biblical for a second. Um, we started out the show last week with the concept, love is the answer. And everyone's going to nod their heads, say, yes, love was the answer. But what are they thinking about when they address the concept of love? Why did they agree that love is the answer? And what is the imagery in their head saying, this is why I agree, love is the answer? It's going to be different for everybody. And George, you might think of the concept of the universal, because I agree with you 100%. It's in everything. It's there. It's a state of being, and it never goes away. In my opinion, we just limit the amount that we are intact and in tune with the concepts of love as we are expressing. Because if we decide to express negatively, that's within our rights to do so. And it's the prerogative of being human, it's the prerogative of being in general, but that's the vibration that we choose. We are not completely absent of love, but we are definitely limiting love to a major degree or a certain degree, which is expressive in the outcome as different elements of fear.
I think it's so true there, Roland, that people choose to they choose the pathway that limits the amount of love that they receive. I happen to believe that love is infinite. It's infinitely available. We choose to step into fear to whatever degree, and that limits the amount of love that we can actually receive. That's my perception of it.
Yeah, well, it gets down to the concept of if God was there, okay, if the big if God was there insisting that we feel love, there wouldn't be any contrast. There wouldn't be any hassles. There wouldn't be any starvation. There wouldn't be any of that that we would have negative feelings about. And the concept is that we have a choice of how we feel, regardless of what goes on, regardless of what the experience is. That's always the choice that we have. So it's kind of a magical thing, really. And we think that we are governed. If we are a victim mentality, we think, oh, well, life sucks, so of course I'm negative and I live in fear, and that's my reality. And by golly, that's what I believe too, and that's why I believe the thing. People rationalize their beliefs according to their experience, according to the things that reinforce their existence, and as opposed to coming to the conclusion that we have any control over what happens in our existence. They're happy being victims and dealing with life as best they can. They're basically fielding the fly balls and pitching at home plate. But never people don't think, well, maybe I could take this ball and walk off the field. Maybe I could throw the ball infinitely into the sky and it'll disappear. Because people have rules of the game for baseball, and people have rules of the game for life. And so those are the boxes that we put ourselves in that keep us from expressing the way we could, and that, I believe, is why we are as limited as we are.
Roland, can I drop in my definition of rules?
Sure.
Okay, because we've shared this before, certainly in the green room. Rules are just someone else's bullshit.
Agreed totally. And I don't think that ultimately we are locked into the rules. People will say, oh, yeah, you're locked into the rule of gravity. If you jump off a cliff, you're going to fall down and hit the bottom. I mean, given, and, according to our experience, we have yet to believe that it could be defied. So we will call it a rule. And there are other rules that we sense that have nothing to do with strict physicality. And that's when people start thinking about the spiritual side of life. So if the rule of fear and love is more universal, more grand than just physical experience, what are they?
I think for one thing, I think to get into the rules is where we're going to end up in problems.
Sure.
Simply because that's where all of us are going to have our own ideas and concepts around it. But even with you using the word love, Roland, I think for some people that in and of itself is problematic,
Sure.
because we have so many labels about what love is. That's why every time I hear you say love, I hear source within me. Because to me, this thing that you are calling love is source. It is this unseen, the invisible field, the things that people would call God or the higher power, or because love to me is so muddied, especially by our culture, but probably by the whole world. There's a lot of cultures I don't know about, but especially in our culture here in the States, it's so muddied that every time a person hears the word love, they decide what that means. They can be very limited concepts, I think. So I think that can get in the way of where we're going with this too. So maybe just open up that space, that if a person has like rules, very fine lines around what love is, to just open up your mind and see this as much greater, much more expansive than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I say love, I'm definitely not thinking the same of anyone else in the green room. You have your own definitions and relative feelings about it. But I would like to narrow it down in context and see if we can target the concept that most efficiently describes what love is in our human experience. And if I break it down as far as I can, it breaks down to two things that we talk about all the time, and which also relates to the polarity of positivity and negativity, and the concept of love and fear, almost exactly the way you are going to look at those two terms. And that is that love feels good, and the opposite or lack of love feels bad. Now, we can get into the terminology, but generally speaking, that's how I divide the lines. Love feels good, a lack of love feels bad. That's my basis of life, practically.
See, and I hear that very, very clearly in positive feels good, negative feels bad.
Yeah,
And that's why I say when you get into the love concept, it's completely off the chart for me because I see it so totally differently.
sure.
Because if it's all love, if it's all divine, who gets to decide how it feels? all of it, all of it is love. Then what you're calling feeling bad might be love.
Well, no, I think that we confuse something there. I
Right.
think that we have the state of love and the expression of love. Those those are connected, irrevocably connected.
Okay,
But
so
they are
you're thinking about the expression.
but they're distinctly two different things, because when you consider the expression of love is up for interpretation and
Yeah.
and definition and attachment to the intention of the delivery. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of misnomers going around regarding what you did in the name of love or what you did because of love or something. And we use love. I did it for you because I love you. It's like, well, you beat the hell out of me. How's that the expression of love? I mean, there are things contradictory in the interpretation and the expression. So, barring the fact that the the effect of love as it goes on in the expression can be definitely misinterpreted to the individual. When you love someone, does it feel good or does it feel bad? Not in what you act on, not in what you do to the other person. In the feeling inside yourself, is it good or bad?
So, question for you: do we feel with the heart or do we feel with the mind?
Yeah, that's a definition that we need to attack, probably, the concept of feeling. And when we have the sensory receptors of touch, hot and cold, hurts, feels
going to
good,
say feel
tickles,
with our hands. What are you guys talking about?
and then we have the emotional feeling. And so right there we have the concept of a definition of feeling that is multifaceted already and has to be taken into consideration as we're defining fear and love. It has to be, because that's the human experience. It's not just the touch of the feelings or the body. It's the feelings we have inside. It's the passion, the emotion, the inner feelings that are indivisible from the physical body. They're absolutely a part of our experience. So I guess that wraps up our hour. But I wanted to bring up the reason that I brought this up today is that, number one, these are very difficult things to define and very difficult things to relate to other people. But there's a polarity issue. And I want to know how other people feel about this. The polarity, to me, is very clear. If it feels good, it's positive. If it feels bad, it's negative. And even though that we can apply that so that when we include other people, it becomes, well, the positivity and the negativity becomes debatable, because you're each having your own individual experience. But in and of the individual, by themselves, the individual has to decide what feels good and what feels bad. And, you know, obviously there are some insane, wacky people, or people would say, like, it's not normal, you know, mass murderers or serial killers. You know, we would probably all gang up and say, oh yeah, that's bad, that's negative, that's fear, that's anger, that's abuse, that's all these things. But that's on the negative side of that's on the opposite side. That's with the concept of anti-love, or the opposite of love, or the lack of love. And that basically describes the polarity that I've been driving to share with everybody. And Carlo, did you want to add something there? I've been rambling on and not being able to let everybody talk.
No, you're doing fine. I wanted to reach out and ask Dan, when you talked about the duality of it is or it isn't, why did he experience it as an attack thought by saying drop it?
Okay. Well, we're going to get some feedback from Dan. He's either going to ask,
Because,
what do you mean?
yeah.
He's either going to ask, what do you mean, or he's going to dive in and he'll explain it to you in a second. So
I would hope so. Yeah.
we'll look for.
Because the back end of that is, who's going to teach who what, and who will teach the teachers.
Or even if there's a dividing line between the student and the teacher, I don't know. But anyway, the conversation can always get really intense with Dan. Dan is very, very acutely aware of life, and he's very well expressed. So we'll see what he has to say about that. But
but what I experience, what I enjoy and what I experience is his passion for the contra is born out of the passion for the existence.
Yes, I think that he is very. If I would call him a realist, I would say that that's fairly accurate. There's no such thing as a pure realist, but I think that he's as real as it comes, and he's as honest as it comes from his perspective. So we'll welcome to see what he says regarding your comment. In the meantime, while Dan's probably typing away, I'm going to share my screen real quick and show you a list that you can take a look at, and then now you can say, oh, now I'm going to throw some rocks at Roland because of this or that. Or you're going to say, well, Roland, you forgot to add this or that or this other term. So I'm going to show you the list now, and we're going to look at that list and basically observe what I call the fear side and the love side. So I didn't want to call it strictly fear because there are a lot of things that are not exactly fear, but fear probably enters into every single one of the following terms. So we could very well have called it fear, or we could call it and the reason I called it this I'll explain in a moment. But I call them love and love lack. And love is reasonably easy. Joy, peace, fun, laughter, humor, serenity, compassion, consideration, acceptance, charity, giving. I mean, I think that you could probably look at that list and go, oh, okay, yeah, we could add this term and that term and come up with likable terms that have some similar feelings. And yet, when it comes to a thought like compassion, compassion can be a bit of a tug of war, as could forgiving be a tug of war. And I'll explain, if you really want me to, I'll explain what that tug of war is. But what I'm explaining or identifying is that some terms that are deemed culturally and societal wise as positive things are definitely not exclusively positive. When we concept the breakdown in the word forgiving, for instance, when we break down the word forgiving, you cannot have forgiving without blame and guilt in the first place. You're assigning guilt and you're assigning blame, you're feeling guilt, or you're assuming that the other person is guilty, and then you're saying, yeah, but I've got to forgive them. So we've judged that person, decided that they're wrong, hold all this negative feelings, and we're packed it up and barreled it on there, and then we're going to say, yeah, but you got to forgive. Now, forgiveness in and of itself, to forgive is a positive thing. But the act of forgiveness for the person is a tug of war of positivity and negativity. Do you agree or disagree? Anybody can chime in.
I think that that's probably true. And ultimately, the power of what this discussion that you're bringing, where to me, in my perspective, is that what we're really opening up here is to allow a person to understand that in any moment they get to decide whether they want to view it from a place of love or from a place of love lack. And even if our fear comes up and we get challenged to respond in a way that might not be expressively loving, we have an option in that moment to stop and reassess and choose a higher space of maybe acceptance or inclusion or allowance, to lose the judgment around it. And for me, I think all of these words, and as you say, there's many more that we can add to it, they all hold certain concepts for each of us. But the real power is in just knowing that you don't have to be caught in that. It doesn't have to run you. That you can make a choice to change that feeling in any moment.
And Shira, I'd like to add on to that. This is where when we first started this discussion today, where I said about we get to choose which direction we're facing, whether we're facing towards love or facing towards fear. It's not that we don't feel feelings and emotions within that space. It's just we choose. We have that choice which direction we're going to move, which way we're going to picture it.
Okay, this is probably the most important facet of the day. And one of the reasons that I focused on what George presented to me so acutely is that it's about the choice and it's about the direction. And to me, I'm basically narrowing it down to, I know that the direction and the direction positivity versus negativity is not just a cut and dry north and south equation, but the positivity and negativity has to be determined somehow. And the one that I'm going with in my case, and this is how I basically rule my life, is that the concepts of fear interchange with us all the time. Every time that we have doubt, any time that we're surprised by something horrific going on or accidental that we experience, and we go, oh, wait a minute, I got to look at this again. There's a certain element of fear in there. There is. But if we live in the environment, the mental and spiritual environment of positivity and love, then we bounce off of the negative and choose love immediately, and that's the direction we go. And what you're saying, George, is we have a choice between love and fear. And the people who go, oh no, that happened. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Oh, who caused this? What is the problem here? That is definitively a negative reaction and approach. And it's a decision on the person's part to dwell in that negativity. Whereas when something happens, if people are solution oriented and they're positive thinkers and they always think we can improve anything that comes along, then you immediately ask the question, what is the positive? That's the reason for this show, is that no matter what we're experiencing in our lives, not every day is going to be the same, let's face it. Sometimes things are going to be a little less than what we expect or want. And when that happens, what do? Okay, well, you've got to really assess the situation, which means you're going to feel a little bit of fear. You're going maybe a lot of fear. You're going to feel the hardship. You're going to feel the detriment to what you would prefer to be happening. You will feel the lack. But then you have a choice to make, and it's all about the expression and the movement from that point. And the concept of this show is you go for what is the positive. Go for, I've been saying this since I was 15 years old, probably. Recovery is the best policy. Getting better, making life a little bit better. It's a mantra of so many of the organizations today. The improvement of life. Make it a little bit better. Make the world a little bit better place. It's ingrained into our being human. So, such as it is, what do we do with the positivity? What is our expression from there? And that is what this show is all about. Want to ask a question, and then we want to get on with it. We want to get on with life and choose something positive, which by definition today very well could be, if the equation holds, that could be the expression of love. So I believe that my effort today to define these things was pretty good. I wanted to draw the picture again a little bit more in depth, that love is the universe. It's a universal state of awareness and being. And since I'm not as eloquent as George was, I'm going to go back to what he wrote. I'm just going to quote it. Love is a universal energy. It's the universal energy. And when we talk about love is everywhere, love is in every atom, every speck, every particle, I believe that. Because even though that we can't describe it the way God designed it, we recognize what it is. We can identify it in our physical existence as a human being, and we are feeling it somehow, whether we feel it in our fingertips or feeling it in our heart or sense it in our brain. We know what love is inherently. Even though if we verbalize it, our definitions can change, it's there. And so my concept is love is everywhere, and love holds this universe together. It's part of the glue. It's the mortar that holds us all together, every single atom. And yet, it's a very flexible, fluent thing from the spiritual state, that if we choose fear, if we choose the offshoots of fear, if we choose any of them at all, any of them, anticipation, anxiety, jealousy, lying, blame, bigotry, righteousness, guilt, shame, resentment, worry, greed, hate, fear, anger. If we choose any of them, we are literally thinning out and weeding out the possible attachment to the universal love and limiting the consciousness, so we're expressing ourselves in a very limited low vibration. So maybe I'm trying to link the science of it all to the spirit of it all, but that's how I see it happening. So anybody want to wrap us up? We've only got 5 minutes, and this has been a kind of an interesting conversation today. Shara, go ahead.
Okay, very quickly. What you're speaking to is victimhood. When a person points a finger, blames another, says it just happened to me, I didn't want it, I didn't call that on, we are literally stuck in the state of victimhood. And the truth of the matter is that no, you don't call it on. It's not like you intentionally say, come over here and upset me, but you are constantly emanating electromagnetic fields. Those electromagnetic fields are projecting what you believe and feel inside. So if you have a lack of self-worth or lack of self-love, a lack of self-importance, you are emanating that to others, and so you're an easy attack zone when that happens. So you are kind of stuck in the victimhood. That's not to say to be afraid or worried or condemned about that, because each of us get to choose in the moment. We might be emanating that, but we can change that. And we can change that by choosing something that's going to bring us a little closer to that higher frequency or that happier state or that feeling of love as you're projecting today.
Well put, Shara. And I come from the roots of pretty much a religious background. Either the concept of reincarnation or the concept of Christian focus. And in either case, it's basically the same if it's what we choose to attach ourselves to. The concept that we were dealing with last week was that indeed love is the answer. And if we take any situation that we have that's a problem and apply love to it, that within the basic umbrella of the whole situation, love will fix the problem. And that's real lacking for a lot of people, because they say, yeah, well, you say that, but I've got this problem and that problem, and it's linked to this and finances and physical problems and ailments and his attitude, her attitude, and what people are saying. You can mark a lot of ways in the real experience why it's not in their control, and that's the expression of what you said was the victimhood. And yet, at every single second, the very same second that we're dealing with all those things, we also have the choice to look at what is the positive, to look at the love, to turn towards the love and away from the problem. Even after we've experienced it, we can turn and move away from it. We can attach ourselves and realign ourselves with the vibration of love. And maybe the love that we attach ourselves to is just a little bit better, a little bit higher vibration than we were when we experienced this unnecessarily or unwanted experience. But at least we're moving away from it. We're moving back into the field of love, back into the flow of things. And that's really all we can do sometimes. We're not expecting the miracle to happen to transform a life, but we can definitely make life a little bit better, a little bit at a time. Go ahead, Carlo. And then we're going to wrap up with George. This was your show today.
I wanted to respond to Dan in the concept of truth. And the statement is, just because it's not your truth does not mean it's not a truth. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, Dan did come back at us with...
That's what I'm responding to. Yeah, that's what I was responding to, yes. Okay, somebody was nice enough to post it internally.
Yeah, and I'll go back and read these more in depth, and it's hard for me to read long posts and then respond during the show. But I will definitely respond, and if anyone wants to carry on with the extemporaneous conversations, I invite you to. The comment stream does not go away, and that's one of the things that I like about Hangouts in general, is that people can carry on what they want to carry on in the midst of the production. And I'm not so focused on myself or this show to say, well, no, if you're not thinking of watching this show, then you go away or whatever. Have the conversations that you want, because we're all learning stuff here. But also Scorpio is responding, and WeWake is responding, and they're having a decent conversation out there, and I'm going to review all the comments. So thank you very much. But anyway, George, did we basically allow you to express the brunt of your theory and your concept, that you literally added this to one of your maxims, and indeed now you have 14. So was it still what you think, or did we add anything to it, or did we? How did we affect your maxims?
The maxims for me still hold good. Again, I go back to my standard phrase: "Your mileage may vary." I think the one thing that I do want to bring forward is that I think it's a human three-dimensional, five-sense reality trait that we see everything external. I saw a long time ago that the parallels between the macrocosm and the microcosm, and I think because my picture of the energy of the universe, what we perceive to be external is actually a portraying and mirroring of what's going on inside us. So the macrocosm, microcosm is so important. My one parting comment would be, please choose wisely in the direction in which you face when it comes between love and fear. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. And I'll just be so blatant because that's one of the things that Roland is. And it's just, don't choose fear. I mean, yes, it's that is the option for you. But we're looking at the universe and the world of terrorists, people who cause havoc, the sickness, conflict, and poverty of the world. And my theory is that it's because people chose the fear route or chose the lack of love. And if we live there and if we believe it, the God of the universe or the universal law is that we're allowed to do so. If you think of it from a Christian or a religious God, God is saying, I'm God. I don't need to judge you. You can express whatever you want. That includes chaos, fear, conflict, poverty, and all those things. But it doesn't have to be. We can express other than that. Now, you can't decide for somebody else what they're going to express and what they're going to believe, but you have power over yourself. So with more and more people believing that, maybe they'll make the choice to think, what is the positive? What is the positive anyway? So that's my conclusion for the day. We're 3 minutes over time, and I thank everyone for your comments today. It was a real live discussion in and out of the green room, and I appreciate that, and hopefully it'll spur some more conversations that will allow us to explore just what exactly is the positive. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Namaste.
Bye-bye.
Bye.